Satchidanandarupaya Vishvotpatyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditarataschaiteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsuryaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Ketavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparerishwaraha Sadyo Hridya Varudyate Trakritibihi Shushrushubistatkshanam. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. When Sri Bharata had come back to Ayodhya and Bhagwan Rama was gone, Raja Dasharatha was unwell, then he had shared with his mother, Rani Kaikeyi, that anyone who doesn't have a relationship with Rama, I don't have a relationship with them. And his point being that his mother didn't have a relationship with Rama, so then she's not his mother. Now I want to personalize this. Bhagavati Sita and Bhagwan Rama are not beautiful. They are not. They are beauty. That which is beautiful is an adjective. It has to describe another entity. Like when I say beautiful, you're asking, what is beautiful? Is it someone's hair? Is it the weather? Is it the wall? They are beauty. That's a noun. That is independent. Personalizing this more, being happy can often change to being unhappy. But Bhagwan Rama, you are happiness. That doesn't change. And so, what we do together in Vedanta and Bhagavata, this is a course in training us to love that which is real. Sri Bharata loved that which is real, Bhagwan Rama. For us to love that which is real, happiness, because it's independent. The fulfillment of such training and loving that which is real, is we experience real love. Our love is conditional right now, always traced with what do I get? With one's nature, with the nature of Bhagwan. There's no doing. There's no getting. One is only being. Rishi Uddhava asks Bhagwan Krishna, who is free? And Bhagavan Krishna responds saying, the one who has followed purity to authority. We invested a lot of time and effort in self-development or virtue development. All that Rishi Dattatreya shared, forgive more, unitask more, and so on. Then that leads one to authority. It is where teachings that you are happiness, feel more authoritative. Bhagavan Krishna shares, this is facilitated by, the example he gives, is an acharya, one who's the bottom cup in this reflecting. And someone had asked, why is the acharya on the bottom and not on the top? Like typically when we study, whom we study for sits higher, stands higher. And I'd shared with the questioner, it's because the acharya stabilizes. If you think of something on the bottom and then something on the top, that which is on the bottom tends to be more stable. So stabilizes that disciple. When this reflecting happens, what the acharya shares, what the student feels, is that their nature is awareness. They are Chinmaya, or filled with awareness. And since that's who they are, all of their other identities, particularly with this body, they are dreamlike. If you think of the last dream you had, and then you woke up, and you seamlessly, naturally let go of that dream body, you did not depend on that. When one knows that their awareness, they have the same relationship with this body. One more insight into what authority feels like when these teachings become personal and real. This is in chapter 11, verses 11 and 12. I'll read it in English. 11:11, 11:12. But the human of dispassion is not bound or affected like the ignorant man, even while lying, sitting, walking, bathing, seeing, touching, smelling, eating, and hearing. Though his senses are functioning, he remains as a mere witness. Though he is seen in a body, which is the product of Prakriti, he is unaffected by bodily contacts. And here's the most reflective part, okay? He is unaffected by bodily contacts like the sky, the sun, and the air. How so? The sky, though all-pervading, is not affected by the objects it pervades. Agreed? I can't harm the sky. The sun, though reflecting in water, is not affected by the attributes of the water. Yes? If you have puddles in your driveway right now and they become muddy, does the sun become muddy? The wind, though moving everywhere, remains unaffected. And I'd given the example earlier about how when Rishi Dattatreya is explaining, the wind treats all equally. If one is holding a rose, there are petals and there are thorns, but that wind treats both equally. Doesn't just caress the petals, but also caresses the thorns. In summary, what I've shared, what Bhagavan Krishna shared so far, is be one who is more of an observer rather than a depender. Observe the body rather than depending on the body. Observe relationships rather than depending on them. Now, as I'm sharing all of this, There are many personalities in our course who very much relate to this. You love the knowledge, but there's some for whom their intellect can't grasp this. This is too subtle. So then Bhagavan Krishna shares, for those to whom this authority is too far right now, what should they do? You will find in Bhagavatam, the teachings are never about giving up. The teachings are always adapted for each personality. Bhagavan says, live to please me. Whatever you do for me. And once you start to practice that, the evolution of that is you will start to depend on me. That's our problem. We depend on our families and our friends for completion. But like a dream, they come and they go. But if I start to depend on Bhagavan, I will become independent of my family and friends. So please me, depend on me. And I had shared some specifics like, you should offer your best to Bhagavan without the thought of that being returned to you. Quite often we give because we know logically we're going to get it back. But one should give their best, and if that comes back, treat that like a bonus. The high school culture here in America and Canada, when you volunteer, you get hours, correct? Now think of it. A volunteer may do it for the signature on a piece of paper, but if you're someone who's serving, you've already gotten the best, which is that opportunity. And if you happen to get recognized, treat it like a bonus. One more insight into what it means to please and depend on Bhagavan. Where is one supposed to do this? Not just in the ashram, not just in your puja room. In chapter 11, in the 42nd verse, Bhagavan shares there are 11 centers. Another word for center is Atma. 11 directions where one can please and depend on me. Here they are. The sun, one can serve the sun. Fire, teacher, cow, devotee, sky, air, water, earth, one's own Atma or spirit, and all beings. So these are 11 directions where we are to practice. What's special about this is all of the elements are listed. Later this year, I'm facilitating a camp called Hinduism equals environmentalism. Isn't that the case with this verse? And Bhagavan says, all living beings. So where are you to practice pleasing and depending on Bhagavan? Even with those who are different than you. Not just physically, but their purpose in life is different. The decisions they make are different. Summarizing chapter 11. I had mentioned to you that chapter 10, 11, and 12 share high Vedanta, 11 especially. So I'm summarizing this. As you associate, so you, what's the next word? Think. As you think, so you develop. Remember those three. Association leads to thinking, thinking leads to development. Now, being more specific about this, associating with sadhus, those who are noble, that association leads to thinking. Thinking is bhakti here. The sadhu sangha leads to bhakti. As you think, so you develop. The development here is surrender. Surrender. Sadhu sangha leads to bhakti. Bhakti leads to surrender. I'm reading to you in the next chapter. This is chapter 12. I'll read it in English, where Bhagavan Krishna describes proof of this. He shares, just as name and form are lost by sages experiencing samadhi and rivers merging in the ocean, the intensely loving selves of the gopikas, lost in me, their separate existence, lost awareness of their kith and kin, with whom one looks upon as one's own, they lost even the consciousness of the very body with which they identified with. What is development? Surrender. What does surrender feel like? You lose yourself, particularly the sense of individuality. Bhagavan completes this chapter by re-emphasizing all that I taught in chapter 10, 11, and 12 is only possible through Guru, Upadesha, and Guru Kripa. Guru Upadesha, that is the Guru's advice, and Guru Kripa, that is the support that a Guru offers. Only then one can experience diversity, but feel the unity. In our Thursday class, Practices to Perfection, the discussion subject was, why do you care for whom you care for? Why do you care about the people you care for? And the observation shared is you consciously care for people in your life, particularly those who are married. Me caring for my sister, me caring for my kids, it's so natural. We have the same blood or DNA. But in terms of a spouse, especially for those who didn't have an arranged marriage, you've chosen that and you identify with them now, correct? So you know how this feels and you feel comfortable with them. Why don't you identify with more beings then? You know how to do it. Why stop with one being? Go to all beings. That's feeling the unity in diversity. Okay. We now come to a very special portion of Srimad Bhagavatam. I was really waiting for this. I'm in the 13th chapter, but I have to give you some context, okay? Sanatana Dharma is a vision statement. It means infinite nature. A vision statement becomes real for people like us through a mission statement. The mission statement is self-development. If you engage in self-development, you will have the vision of infinite nature. And for those who are careful about language, another word for self-development is yoga. Now, a mission statement, to feel this, there has to be an action statement. The action statement is study and discipline. 3 SDs. The study and discipline leads to self-development, which leads to Sanatana Dharma. Everyone's with me? And now I'm going to zoom into this just by a show of hands. Let's change the word Sanatana Dharma to Hindu, just for simplicity. How many of you, these are your options, feel that you are born a Hindu? That's option 1. And how many feel that you are not born a Hindu? Meaning, it is a choice you make. Okay. And I'm not talking about legally. On a form, I would have to write, I'm a Hindu, because that's what my parents are legally. I mean, in a more meaningful way. How many of you feel that you're born a Hindu? You particularly are born as a Hindu. Okay. How many of you feel otherwise? You choose to be a Hindu. Okay. No one is born a Hindu. Again, I'm not talking about legality and geography. That's why I'm hammering out, you have to study Hinduism. You have to know what it is to be able to follow it. Yes. And those who study and follow, even if they don't write on a form that they're a Hindu, they are a Hindu then. Understood? Okay. So now, in the chapters we just studied, in terms of study and discipline, what Bhagavan Krishna was sharing is you should associate with sadhus. And by associating with sadhus, this is how you study and discipline. This is how you rise to the mission statement and to the action statement. Sorry, to the vision statement. Now what Bhagavan Krishna is going to share, maybe you can't be with sadhus all the time. That's a macro strategy. It's external. As you associate, so you think, so you develop. In this chapter, he's now beginning by sharing, associate with sattva. Sattva is not external, correct? Sattva is a micro strategy. Sattva can be practiced irrespective of context. What is sattva? To be very clear about this, in chapter 13, I'm reading verses 5 through 7 in English. 5 and 6, only 5 and 6. Whatever wise humans commend as spiritually beneficial should be understood as sattvika in nature. Whatever they condemn are to be taken as tamasika, and whatever they ignore as rajasic. For the development of sattva, humans should associate with the 10 sattvic developing entities and substances. 10. This is what I'm going to really highlight shortly. From that will devotion and knowledge develop. Only then will the memory of one's spiritual nature rise and the bondage of matter get effaced. Summarizing. When one studies and then follows, they lose their sense of individuality because they're assuming the sense of infinity. In the earlier chapter, this is done through association with sadhus. Now, Sri Krishna is sharing, it's also done with the association of sattva. We are to practice or pursue sattva in 10 directions. Here's what they are. Extremely practical. Please try to write this, try to remember this. The reference for you is verse 4. I mentioned it last week. I'm mentioning it again. Verse 4. Agamopaf praja deshaha kala karma cha janma cha dhyanam mantrota samskaraha dashaite guna hetavaha. Shri Krishna shares, gunas pervade these 10 directions. You should nurture sattva. In what? Number 1, agama. Agama means what you read. Now, in a fuller analysis, if we had more time, what I would describe to you, what is sattvic reading, what is rajasic reading, and what is tamasic reading. But I'm going to simplify it to what is sattvic reading and what is rajasic reading. Okay? Though many of us look tamasic, I don't think many of us are tamasic. So I'll just use these two differentiations. In terms of agama, Sattvic reading is reading that makes you more selfless. And tamasic reading is that which, rajasic reading is that which relates to selfishness. So now when you're looking down an Instagram feed, does it relate to becoming more selfless? Other than Chinmaya Mission Niagara's. But now, in terms of Vedanta and Bhagavata, when you read this, you try to feel less like an individual and more like infinity. So agama, be careful about what you read. Next is apa. Apa means what you drink. What you drink. And sattvic drinking is that which is water. Most natural. The majority of this earth is water. How do you nurture sattva? Drink more water. Physicians, you're welcome. And in terms of rajasic drinking, that which is unnatural, that which is flavored. Think about how much we consume that's flavored. Sodas, particularly. Everything about it is unnatural. The color is unnatural. What's infused in it is unnatural. Coca-Cola used to be made with cocaine. Vivekji, that's natural too. Just stick to the water, okay? Next is praja. This is direction number 3. Sattvic, praja means people. So agama, what you read, apa, what you drink, praja is the company you keep. Sattvic praja is inclusive. Inclusive. The more you're around inclusive people, the more sattvic you'll be. Then rajasic praja is exclusive. It is very much about othering. A subtle way where I see this. Suppose I speak Telugu, suppose. And I'm hanging out with some people who speak Telugu, but there's a non-Telugu speaker there. What is rajas? Me continuing to speak in Telugu, that person feels excluded then, correct? We should use a language that is most inclusive. Make sense? Just an observation that I've made. Number 4 is desha. The 4th direction is desha. Desha means the place you go, the place you stay. Sattvic desha is nature. Nature. How do you want to become more sattvic? Be in nature more. More trees, more grass, and so on. And rajasic desha, Bhagavatam is so specific, it says crowded highways. So Niagara Falls, sattvic. Toronto, rajasic. But really, where there's a lot of development, where you see less trees and more concrete, that's nurtures rajas. Number 5, kala. The 10th way we can practice to nurture sattva. Kala means time. Now, this should be obvious for all of us. How to nurture sattva? Morning time. That's where you're most enthusiastic, energetic. And rajasic, evening time. That's when you wake up. And that's when you really apply yourself. Then naturally, one's going to be more rajasic. Everyone caught those 5? Agama, apa, praja, desha, kala. Next 5. There are 10. Number 6 is karma. Karma is the actions you engage in. To nurture sattva, engage in your regular responsibilities. Regular responsibilities. For those in Seattle, we describe this as nitya karma. And if you want to nurture rajas, just be the way you are. But more specifically is one engages in small responsibilities. What you're doing is only limited to some. It's like minimum happiness for minimum people, that kind of mentality. Okay? We would call that kamya karma. Number 7, janma. Now, technically, janma means birth. But how do you choose that? It means how you feel. Every day we are reborn, sometimes cheerful, sometimes cranky, sometimes tired, sometimes energetic. So to nurture sattva, one's janma, one's feeling should be inspired. Inspired, I want to be better, but that force is not coming from outside. I want to be better because I want to be better. It's coming from inside. Whereas nurturing rajas would be the feeling of being motivated. Where does motivation come from? Outside. Outside. One is always dependent then. That's the difference between a motivational speaker and an inspirational teacher. Number 8, dhyana. Dhyana means what you are thinking about. What is your perspective? To nurture sattva, it is to feel all that happens to you is filled with grace. Keyword is grace. I missed my flight, that is grace. I won the lottery, that's grace too. One feels the hand of Bhagavan in all the experience. Rajasic dhyana is where your narrative is one of deficiency. Deficiency. When you interact with people, you look at their weaknesses. Why did this happen to me? This is not good enough. Deficiency. I'm going to pause here. I have 2 more. Are you all enjoying yourself? Is this practical to you? I find this to be super interesting. Today, our reflector was talking about how useful frameworks are. Yes? Now, if I said, find me a framework in Bhagavatam, you have to go through 18,000 verses to find this. This is just one verse out of 18,000. And what a practical framework for us. Number 9, mantra. Mantra. Dhyana is what you're thinking about. Mantra is more about how you're talking. What is the subject matter of your words? To nurture sattva, talk about peace. Talk about happiness and virtues. To nurture rajas, talk about prosperity. Russia's GDP is going to be so low. America's is better. Tesla outperformed everyone's expectations, right? Naturally, rajas is going to be nurtured then. And number 10, samskara. Samskara really means your purpose. Okay? So if I can give you a minor framework, dhyana is your mind, mantra is your body, samskara becomes your intellect, if you look at the BMI chart. What is your purpose? To nurture sattva, your purpose is purification. You do all you do to become more pure. Rajas, beautification. Beautification. It's where you put in so much effort to make this body more beautiful because this is who you think you are. And I'll extend this more. You engage in beautification because you want external validation. I want you to commend how my car looks or what I did yesterday. It's always about the other person validating you. I'd shared recently, I think in Seattle again with some young adults, that rich people only find value when people know they're rich. Correct? Suppose I'm rich, but I have nobody to tell me I'm rich. What's the point of being rich? It's about other people saying, look how rich that person is. For one, to change who they are from an individual to infinity, associate with sadhus. And now Shri Krishna is sharing, associate with sattva. In these 10 directions that we're really always engaged in, be more careful, more vigilant to nurture sattva. Now, this is the beginning of chapter 13. Here's how chapter 13 continues. I'm taking more time now because I fly to Bharat on Saturday. So my availability, I'll still teach from Bharat, but it won't be as easy as I'm teaching right now. After Bhagavan shares this, Rishi Uddhava asks another question to Bhagavan. And his questions are really our questions. He shares, pleasure, those who live for pleasure are always led to sad, which means stress, anxiety, and dejection. Those who pursue pleasure always experience this. Why do people live for pleasure? If this is all they get, why do they do it? That's his question. Bhagavan Krishna answers in brief first. He says, the way to not do this is yoga. Yoga is redirecting one's mind from pleasure to peace. Yoga is redirecting your mind. The mind is going to go, but from pleasure to peace. Then Bhagavan Krishna shares, I actually taught this a long time ago. He sets up precedent. He says, once the Sanata Kumaras asked their father, that is Bhagavan Brahma, the same question. They had asked him, how do we make our mind more sattvic? And Bhagavan Brahma said, I don't know. You know why Bhagavan Brahma said that? Because Bhagavan Brahma is always doing. And for us, you know what doing is? Becoming. We're always trying to become something, which means we're always missing out on being who we are. But what's lovely about Bhagavan Brahma, when he doesn't know, what does he do? He asks the wise. He asked Bhagavan Narayana for the answer. That's how Bhagavatam began. Bhagavan Brahma was lost. He doesn't know what to do. He contemplated on Bhagavan Narayana. Bhagavan Narayana taught him Bhagavatam. And then Bhagavan Narayana manifests as a, does anyone know? A Hamsa. He takes the avatara of a swan. Bhagavan Hamsa ki jai. Now, this word Hamsa is lovely. We have lots of people in our community whose names are Hamsa. Tell me, what is the Sanskrit word for ego? Sanskrit word for ego. Your name, but what's another name? Ahankara, correct? Ahankara, which means aham karomi. I am doing. Hamsa means aham saha. Aham, I'm pointing to Bhagavan Krishna here. Who am I? I am not doing. I am he, as in the divine. So Hamsa means I am divine. I am divine. I am divine. Bhagavan Narayana appears as a Hamsa and then starts to teach Bhagavan Brahma and his children. What an awesome satsang. Imagine children listen to their father. And this is known as Hamsa Gita. Hamsa Gita, a very precious part of Srimad Bhagavatam. I will read to you the verse next week, but here's my last thought before we have a brief discussion. Why a Hamsa? Our mind, this is all taught by Bhagavan, okay? I'm summarizing. our minds are made up of the gunas, and our minds are engaged in articles, beings, and circumstances, which are also made up of the gunas. Correct? Me thinking about this pencil, my mind is made of gunas, and so is this pencil. So how do you separate the mind from what it's made of? That's essentially the question. A hamsa is a theological bird that has the ability to separate milk and water. If I had a glass of milk, of water, and I put milk in it, and I asked you, separate it for me, it'd be impossible for us. But a hamsa is able to separate that. That type of being is required for us to learn how to separate the mind from articles, beings, and circumstances. This is so cool. Just the symbolism, the consistency, the practicality. So cool. I don't even know what word to use other than cool. And I shared it last week and I'm sharing it again. We are so bhagya. You click one link and you get all of this. Agreed? You show up for lunch, we've come here for lunch, and we get all of this also. Oh.